Look, I was going through recession planning content this morning, and I noticed something that bothered me. Every piece of advice is either cut everything immediately or don't change anything. Stay the course. And both of those are wrong. One creates unnecessary pain. The other creates real damage. What retirees actually need is a spending plan that can flex intelligently when conditions get ugly, without panic, without crisis, and without feeling like retirement is being taken from them. And I think you deserve the full story. So here it is. I'm recording this video right now because this topic is quietly costing retirees real money. Comment where you're watching from so I can see how far these videos travel. And real quick, if you value calm, numbers-first retirement breakdowns like this, do me a favor, subscribe and comment Retirement Risk Watch so the algorithm knows you want more of this. Now, in case you haven't seen what I'm talking about, here's the claim making the rounds. In a recession, just cut spending across the board. Or, the opposite, don't change anything. Markets always recover. And on the surface, both sound reasonable. But when you slow it down piece by piece, and you look at what spending cuts actually cost psychologically, and what rigidity costs financially, you realize the reality is more nuanced. That's clean. It's also incomplete. So I'm going to break down three things. First, what a recession actually does to a retirement plan and where the real damage comes from. Second, the thermostat spending system, what to cut first, what to protect, and in what order. And third, the recovery plan, how you restore spending after conditions improve without repeating the same crisis. So let's start with what we can verify. A recession typically brings two pressures to a retirement plan. First, portfolio value drops. Second, spending stays fixed or even rises due to inflation or unexpected costs. Those two pressures moving in opposite directions increase the withdrawal rate. And an elevated withdrawal rate sustained over time is how retirement plans get permanently damaged. Here's the clean way to think about it. Your retirement plan is like a thermostat system. When the house gets too hot, the thermostat adjusts. When conditions cool, the thermostat adjusts back. A good retirement spending plan works the same way. It is not a fixed setting that ignores conditions. It is a responsive system with rules. Now, the problem with cut everything is that it is psychologically brutal and often unnecessary. If you have a runway and you can fund essentials without touching the growth engine, you may not need to cut much at all. The panic cut is often a fear response rather than a necessity. And the problem with don't change anything is that it can force you to sell depressed assets to maintain spending that was designed for better conditions. That is how a temporary recession becomes a permanent portfolio impairment. Here's a question for you. In a recession, do you have a written plan for what gets cut first? Comment yes, I have a list, or no, I would improvise. Because the difference between those two answers is the difference between controlled adjustment and panic. Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. The thermostat spending system has 4 layers, and each layer has a different priority in a recession. Layer 1, essential fixed expenses, housing costs, utilities, insurance, food, medications, basic transportation. This layer does not get cut. This is the floor. If you are cutting here, the plan was already broken before the recession. Layer 2, essential variable expenses, healthcare costs that can vary, home maintenance, basic clothing replacement, necessary travel for family obligations. This layer gets monitored but generally protected. In a moderate recession, this layer stays intact. Layer 3. Lifestyle spending, dining out, entertainment, hobbies, subscriptions. Non-essential travel, upgrades. This is the first thermostat layer. This is where you cut first, partially and temporarily in response to portfolio stress. Not because you have to eliminate joy, because you are turning the thermostat down slightly to protect the machine. Layer 4. Discretionary upgrades and major optional expenses. Big vacations, major home renovations, large gifts, luxury upgrades. This is the second thermostat layer. In a deeper recession or a prolonged downturn, this layer gets paused or significantly reduced. The key principle is this: you cut from the bottom of the list upward. You protect the foundation. You reduce the optional. And you have this list written down before the recession, so you are not negotiating with yourself when you are already stressed. Now here's a concrete example of how this works in practice. Suppose a retiree has a $6,000 per month total spending plan. Essential fixed is $3,000. Essential variable is $800. Lifestyle spending is $1,500. Discretionary upgrades average $700 per month. In a mild recession with a moderate portfolio drop, the thermostat response might be cutting lifestyle spending by $500 and pausing discretionary upgrades entirely. Total monthly spending drops from $6,000 to $4,800. That is a 20% reduction that requires no touching of essential quality of life while meaningfully reducing the drain on the portfolio. That is not deprivation. That is precision. Now, here's the skeptical alternative. Someone will say, "But I worked my whole life to enjoy retirement. I shouldn't have to cut." That is plausible and emotionally valid. Here's how it can fail. If you refuse to adjust spending temporarily, you may be forced to make much larger permanent adjustments later when the portfolio is significantly more damaged. A small voluntary cut now versus a large forced cut later. That is the choice. So what does this actually mean for you? It means the recession spending plan is built before the recession, not during it. Here is a simple action plan. No drama. Step 1. Write down your 4 spending layers right now. Essential fixed, essential variable, lifestyle, discretionary upgrades. Assign monthly dollar amounts to each. Step 2. Define your thermostat triggers. What market or portfolio condition triggers layer 3 cuts? What condition triggers layer 4 pauses? Write those down specifically. Step 3. Define your recovery triggers. What condition tells you it is safe to restore spending? You need both the cut trigger and the restore trigger, or you will either cut prematurely or wait too long to restore. Write it down. Decide X first, then Y. Keep it sane. Now, I want to talk about the recovery side, because people focus on the cutting and ignore the restoration. And failing to restore spending after conditions improve is its own problem. If markets recover and your portfolio has stabilized, but you are still running a recession-era spending plan, you are unnecessarily reducing your quality of life and potentially also creating tax inefficiency by under-withdrawing from certain accounts. The recovery trigger should be defined in advance. Something like when the portfolio has recovered to a specific percentage of its pre-recession value and the cash runway has been refilled to target, restore spending to the normal plan in stages. Not all at once. In stages. Because restoration should be as disciplined as reduction. Now, let's map 3 plausible paths without pretending we can predict the exact market. Path 1. Short, sharp recession followed by recovery. In this world, the thermostat spending system absorbs the hit. You cut layer 3 partially, protect the portfolio from excessive withdrawals, and restore spending as markets recover. The damage is minimal because the plan adapted early. Path 2. Prolonged recession or slow recovery. In this world, layers 3 and 4 both get reduced. The runway gets used. The portfolio is protected from forced selling. The plan holds because the cuts are structured and staged, not chaotic. Optional Path 3. Recession coincides with unexpected large expense. In this world, the combination of reduced income, portfolio stress, and a one-time large cost creates real pressure. This is where having multiple spending layers and a runway matters most. You fund the emergency from the runway, maintain spending cuts in layers 3 and 4, and avoid selling the growth engine at a discount. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Retirees who blow up their plans in recessions rarely do it because of the market. They do it because they had no spending hierarchy and no triggers. When the market dropped, they kept spending the same amount, sold assets at depressed prices, and then never fully recovered because the portfolio base was permanently smaller. A recession is not a retirement killer. An inflexible spending plan attached to a volatile portfolio without a runway or a thermostat. That is the retirement killer. Here are the rules I use, and you can steal them. 1. Decide your maximum withdrawal guardrail first. Write it down. If you're losing sleep, you're pulling too hard, or you're invested too aggressive. 2. When markets run hard and you're up a lot, refill your cash runway. Not forever, just enough to buy you time. 3. Don't confuse income with safety. A high yield is not a safety guarantee. 4. The best time to make a retirement decision isn't when you're scared or hyped. It's when you can still breathe and do the math. So here's what we covered. A recession creates portfolio pressure and spending rigidity simultaneously. The combination elevates withdrawal rates and causes permanent damage. The thermostat spending system cuts in layers, lifestyle first, discretionary second, essentials never. Build the plan before the recession, define both cut triggers and restore triggers, and execute with discipline, not emotion. The real risk isn't just the market, it's timing, taxes, and behavior. So if you want a retirement that survives a recession without panic, build the thermostat before the storm. Now, here are my questions for you. First, do you have a written spending hierarchy right now? Yes or no? Comment yes or not yet. Second, in a recession, which would you cut first? Dining out, travel, entertainment, or gifts? Drop your first cut in the comments. If you got value out of this, subscribe and comment Retirement Risk Watch so I know you want a follow-up when the next update hits. And if this helped you, share it with someone who's trying to retire without making expensive mistakes. All right, take care of yourself, stay sharp, and I'll talk to you soon. And just so we're crystal clear, this is educational content and commentary. It's my take based on publicly discussed information and my own reasoning. And it's not personal financial advice. I'm not your advisor. I don't know your goals or your risk tolerance, and I could be wrong. Do your own homework. Consider your situation. And if you need personal advice, get it from a qualified professional who knows your situation.